graced me with a touch of sincerity. Maybe I'd taken respect for granted, because as each new star rises, I still find myself with the same doubt. How could I trust anymore? Would the world even steal a glance if I were to fall? Those were the words that I wrote to myself in the trenches of life that I called middle school. For me, it was pretty rough. And I don't mean it in the traditional, oh my God, life is so stressful, I have so much work to do way. I mean that I couldn't get over the feelings of fear and loneliness that constantly plagued me. What I really mean to say is, I got bullied that year. And it might sound really silly when I tell you that all people did was just joke around about who my crush was, but back then, I took everything so literally that when I told the truth and nobody believed me, I felt alone, and it hurt. And it felt like my problems were so trivial that they didn't even matter at all. I spent my middle school years running away from my problems, instead electing to focus on the two things that matter most to me, my grades and my hockey team. In my head, my loneliness was irrelevant. Even though I felt okay on most days, my thoughts and feelings continued to grow like parasites, eating away at my mind until every little increment reminded me of how alone and hopeless I was. I was stuck in a never-ending battle between wanting to let out my feelings, but not wanting my friends or family to worry about me. So with my own sanity on the line, I was determined to find a solution. As a child, I always had a passion for writing, but I never really wrote introspectively or about myself at all. So this time, I wrote for myself. And not long after the first poem came the next, and soon I was writing a poem every single day. In my line stories, I questioned the meaning of life, love, and what it meant to be an uninspiring speck in the universe. I told myself tales about my feelings, and through my poems, I discovered that not only did I enjoy writing about myself, but that I was also healing. Each day, getting out of bed felt a little bit easier. Eating felt less like a chore and more like a privilege. And I started to grow less reserved about myself and my social ability. For the first time in so many years, I felt happy. Unsurprisingly, I'm not the first person to search for outlets to their problems. To cope, to deal with and attempt to overcome problems and difficulties. In this case, coping can be further defined as the thoughts and behaviors mobilized to manage internal and external stressful situations. Although everyone's story and healing path is different, one prevailing similarity is that in order to help yourself, you have to dedicate time and effort. Although it may be hard, you have to grow comfortable with the fact that sometimes you just need help. And for me, once I realized that poetry was my way of healing, I spent a lot more time writing. What was once an untouched passion turned hobby soon became my go-to coping mechanism. And through my writing and healing, I discovered something I should stress. When it comes to coping, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to find something that allows you to let go of whatever is stressing you out. But what is equally important is that whatever you find yourself doing, it should be relaxing and enjoyable. Coping should never be a chore. And for me, poetry was the perfect coping mechanism because not only was it the perfect outlet, but also writing was just so much fun for me. In fact, I would have written this speech in verse if I was allowed to. Aside from all the finding your own coping method talk, it's important to remember that humans are innately social animals, and this becomes extremely prevalent when it comes to vulnerability and opening up. Have you ever felt like really, really excited to tell someone that you won an award, or you made a perfect score on your test before? Or maybe you've just felt like you've hit rock bottom, and nothing could possibly get worse in your life, and you just needed someone to vent to. No matter what the case is, the bottom line is that sometimes we just need someone to talk to. And for me, no matter how perfect of a coping mechanism poetry was, sometimes the only thing I wanted to do was just tell someone what I was going through. And that brings me to my next point. Not only should you be comfortable with needing help, you should also embrace the idea that opening up is an unavoidable part of healing. The benefits of just having someone or a group of people be there for you and listen to you are irreplaceable. Just think about it. Nothing beats the satisfaction of just having, just feeling heard and understood by the person or people that you trust the most. And you don't just have to take my word for it. According to London School of Medicine Dr. Louise Uni, the strength of sharing vulnerable spaces may be one of the most generous things that we can offer to our peers, students, and patients. To summarize, being able to express your vulnerability is a gift, and this vulnerability can be a mechanism for improving your own mental health. Uni also suggests that creating safe spaces where people can share poetry, images, and other personal stories with other good and equally imperfect human beings can help us to unlock the defenses that we use to guard or deny our vulnerability. In essence, being vulnerable and sharing your experience and feelings can help you feel more comfortable with yourself and your own unique experience. Another study done by professors from the University of East Anglia in conjunction with members of the National Health Service in the UK found that storytelling can be a highly meaningful experience and an important part in the individual's recovery journey. This study involved a select few adults who were struggling with mental illnesses, and the goal was to see if storytelling had any effect on their mental health and recovery. The results from this experiment came back amazingly positive. A number of individuals described feeling a sense of catharsis achieved from getting it all out, as opposed to keeping everything inside, whereby it just festers and becomes toxic. Most of the participants who took part in the study found that sharing their story allowed them to feel a strong sense of liberation from being able to express previously hidden parts of themselves. According to one unnamed participant, I felt a certain weight lifted off my shoulders. I got the whole story I wanted to tell off my chest, so it actually helped lighten my mood a great deal. So far, we've talked about mental health, having the power to be vulnerable, and finding a coping method that's just perfect for you. And I know that sometimes just throwing a bunch of information and advice at you can seem really overwhelming, but trust me, finding a coping method is just so worth it. I'm in a much better place. I'm much livelier, happier, and I'm a great deal more optimistic than I used to be. Of course, I still have my worries, but I've grown to love writing about them. Over this past year, I've discovered a lot more about myself, and I found myself surrounded by the most loving people that I've ever met. And so, if there's anything that you take from my speech today, I hope that you remember that coping should never be a chore, and that vulnerability is your strength. And so, it's like my cries answer themselves. I could be seen, I could be touched, I could be found. And with a grateful embrace, even I could be loved.